After 2 long years, I was wandering the streets and alleys of Hanoi again. Vietnam opened its borders in March and I didn't waste any time heading back. I've been exploring Vietnam for 3 decades, so there was a lot to catch up on. I wanted to check in on how travel in Vietnam might look after 2 years of border closures, catch up with friends and work out the future of our Vietnam businesses. These old quarter streets, normally buzzing with foreign tourists, were quiet. Hotels and shops were shuttered. But even across the weeks I was there, I could see things opening up all across Vietnam. More than most people, the Vietnamese know about recovery from hardship. And Vietnam's legendary hospitality is alive and well. I enjoyed a laugh with these guys while interrupting their Sunday morning coffee. Hanoi streets may be coming back to life, but the devastation of the past 2 years is especially apparent on these streets around the Old Quarter. This area was one of the most popular areas for tourists, so there's lots of hotels, cafes, restaurants and shops, and most of them are closed. And of course you've got to wonder what's going to happen, how many of them will come back, how many of them will recover. But today we're going to meet a couple, Na and Liem, who have survived the crisis, and their little shop behind me here is looking forward to better times.
For me, it's an enormous transition from being a shop that located in the tourist area into a community gift shop, lifestyle concept store.
Yeah.
We try to make our products appealing to the people who live in Hanoi.
I wanted to find out how the pandemic had impacted on social enterprises in Hanoi. So I headed out to the West Lake area. During my stay in Hanoi, I've had the opportunity to catch up with an old mate, an old colleague, Pham. Jimmy founded KOTO, which is one of the really interesting NGOs in Hanoi that is involved with training disadvantaged young people in hospitality. And KOTO's been operating for decades now, and its impact is everywhere in Vietnam. You meet KOTO graduates all over the country working in the hospitality industry.
So the last 2 years has been incredibly difficult. I made a very difficult decision to continue despite the pandemic, because a lot of our kids that we help have nowhere else to go. So we reached out to all our funders and our supporters, and they've been very generous. That keeps us afloat for the last 2 years and feed our kids and put a roof over their head.
Tens of thousands of travellers and a handful of presidents and prime ministers have been served by the wonderful young students of KOTO. So there are now 2 KOTO eateries in Hanoi. KOTO Villa is in the expat area of the city, and another new KOTO has opened nearby the original, across the road from the Temple of Literature in the centre of Hanoi. So make sure you swing by KOTO, and when you're done, head across the road to check out the Temple of Literature. While most of Hanoi is in a mad rush to modernity, there are still parts of the city that remember its ancient Confucian roots. Hanoi's first university dates back to the 11th century, and it's a great antidote to the intensity of the rest of the city. Locals of all ages flock here for photo shoots. Sometimes they even invite the bald foreigner into the shot. I've always viewed Hanoi to be one of the great photogenic cities, and that has not changed. It's less the picture postcard stuff and more a city bursting with humanity and character. In Hanoi, everything happens on the street. The markets are on the street. So this little street is a classic food street. There's a whole lot of noodle stalls. In the years before COVID, Hanoi's Instagram favourite was what became known as Train Street. It's a rail corridor through the centre of the city where trains run perilously close to the local houses. It's one of those places with a curious appeal that's been supercharged by Instagram and TikTok. I've made a couple of previous videos here that you can check out. In 2019, Train Street was shut down to tourists, presumably because of safety concerns. But it's back and already the busiest tourist spot in the capital. Caught up with the wonderful Ms. Dung, the exuberant original cafe owner on Train Street.
Anh quay phim có em lúc trước có nhớ không?
Nhớ, rất nhớ.
Không, anh chỉ hỏi về bây giờ người nước ngoài đi bộ ở đây như hồi trước.
Được,
thoải mái.
đi bộ như hồi trước. Nhưng mà em vẫn chờ đợi mở cửa, em vẫn chờ đợi sau Covid em vẫn chờ.
She told me she'd been waiting for COVID to pass and for travellers to return. And that was just beginning.
Thank you em nhé.
Dạ.
Vui nói chuyện với em rồi.
The little buzz from a close encounter with a train continues. Not sure how much longer it'll go on or whether it even should. But everyone seemed pretty pleased, especially this little guy. Another recent Hanoi traveller favourite, Beer Corner, was heaving again. Young Hanoians making up for 2 lost COVID years and showing us why Vietnam is one of Southeast Asia's biggest beer drinking markets. Today I want to chat with an old mate, author, designer, painter, thinker and owner of fabulous bars, event spaces, restaurants, Nguyen.
Well, one thinks of the last 2 years, and it's pretty amazing how we've survived it. And one thinks of the understanding friends, close friends, and landlords who stepped in to be helpful. The amazing efforts and beliefs of the staff who continued to work through this time of uncertainty. Everybody pulled together, understood that we needed to pull together to help each other out. We listened to what the government was telling us. It was like socialism, communism, and Confucianism all kicked back in. Come back in a year and we'll see how far we can go with all of this. If we can survive for another year, I think we'll be okay.
When you first read about Hanoi's Old Quarter, you probably think old streets, mellow lanes, quiet cafes. But Hanoi's Old Quarter is actually one of the most noisy and intense parts of this city. The Old Quarter is the epicenter of tourism in Hanoi, so you'll inevitably spend time wandering around these parts. But push out to the edges and beyond the Old Quarter. That's where you'll get a sense of life in the city, the energy of the place, and the characters who live here. Bán gì đấy?
Bán trứng.
À, trứng hả?
Bán trứng ngày cứu, bán trứng
Omelette à?
Bán trứng ngày cứu, bán trứng vịt lộn.
Hanoians make great use of their public spaces. I love this one in the old French Quarter, where some French colonial official was lopped off this plinth and fountain long before statue campaigns became a thing around the world. The dazzling dexterity of this ancient sport, đá cầu, will amaze as you wander Hanoi. Statues of French colonials might have been banished from Hanoi parks, but one European continues to stand tall in the centre of government in Hanoi. This may be Southeast Asia's only surviving Lenin statue. I have vivid memories of wandering here on my first visit to Hanoi in 1990. Back then, this was a city of bicycles, and this statue seemed to make more sense. These days, the kids make good use of it as a climbing wall. Just across the street from Lenin is Hanoi Citadel. It's a little visited place that must be one of Vietnam's most important historical sites. There's centuries of history here, including this archaeological dig that dates back to the founding of Hanoi. This simple concrete structure is where North Vietnam's military brass led their successful campaign against South Vietnamese and US forces. Decisions made in this room rattled Presidents Johnson and Nixon. These fabulous Soviet-era vehicles carried Hanoi's military brass around. In the early 90s, these were some of the only cars on the road in Hanoi. Apart from the historical experience, it's a pretty quiet green place to wander. The magic of Hanoi is alive and well. Its legendary street food scene seems to have come through the pandemic unscathed. You can check out our Hanoi travel guide over at rustycompass.com. If you'd like to travel with us more on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to travel with us in person, head over to oldcompasstravel.com. You'll find helpful links in the description below. In our next video, I will be checking out the World Heritage listed streets of Hoi An on Vietnam's Central Coast. Thank you and talk again very soon.